Welcome to Men's Boots. Yet another beautiful day, and we're coming to you with something really important. You know, on Men's Boot, we always talk about important matters that most people or lots of people like to shy away from. Today, as a guy, as a man, we're talking about love and trust. What is love and trust for a man? Where does a man need to show love and trust? You know, a lot of times when you talk about love and trust, you talk about love and trust between a man and a woman. We're talking about love and trust for a man and his family. You know, so it extends beyond just himself and the spouse or the wife or to a woman, but to the children, to the young ones around. How do you build love and trust for between you and your family, between you and your children, between you and for you now, right? How would you like love and trust to have been communicated to you growing up?
For me, love and trust. When you say love, first of all, love is expressed. And for me, I would say I had a very loving childhood. My mom created a safe space for me to be able to talk. There was no issue that maybe I was kind of experiencing that I couldn't, talk to her about. Or it was, I had a very safe space to express myself. She didn't really put that fear, in us. Or maybe you break something, you can't report yourself, or something happens, you can't speak. So for me, I had that love and I had that trust that okay, there was someone that I could speak to regarding issues.
Welcome to Men's Boots. All this and much more you're going to be enjoying on today's episode of Men's Boots. See you on the other side. Welcome back. Now, we're talking earlier, and Shegun was telling us about his experience with his mom and how the mom created a safe space for him to be able to share. I have a story to tell concerning that. Now, when I was younger, right, there's this guy, a friend of mine. They were friends then. We grew up and everybody went their way. But when we were younger, this particular guy had an issue with his teacher, right? And he was from a well-to-do home. So one evening while he was driving, he was the one driving. He saw the teacher on a motorbike, on a public motorbike, right? And he just thought to scare the driver. He just thought to scare the teacher. So he drove close and just kind of, just wobble, just to scare, like, you that used to beat me in school kind of stuff, just to get back at the teacher. Now, that little activity spiraled and the bike crashed and the man actually died. Yes, wow. And the reason why I'm telling the story is not about that, even though that was really terrible. But the reason for the story is this. So, as soon as that happened, the boy immediately made a U turn, headed straight home, got to the house, ran in, told the mom, Mom, I think I've killed someone. Mom, I think I've killed someone. So, immediately, the mom got up and sprang into action, right? Started doing all that she could to salvage the scenario. The idea for telling the story is not really about the mishap that happened. It's because what the boy did, when that happened, the kind of safe space that the parent had been able to create, such that when the child, when he did what was wrong or what he perceived to be wrong, he found refuge in his parents first before any other person. I'll give another scenario, a counter scenario. So a girl goes out there, she's dating a guy, and she gets pregnant. And now she's pregnant. The last person that gets to hear is her parents. And at the time when they now finally hear is when she's already 7 months gone. Now, a mistake in code that she had made, now they all have to live with it. They all have to manage it somewhere. Of which, if this particular parent had created the kind of safe space that the previous parents created, the moment the girl suspected something about her, she would have started getting proper counsel and guidance and leadership from her parents from when the baby was 1 month or 2 months old, right? Then she feels the nurturing, the right nurturing, helping her go through that process. Now, this young girl had to go through process she had no business going through for 7 months by herself, maybe making many more mistakes in the process, maybe almost killing herself, etc., etc. So building love and trust as a father is something that cannot be overrated because it spirals into every other area of the family life. So as a young man about to get married, what do you need to understand about love and trust? As a man that just got married, what do you need to understand? As one that has been married for a while, what do you need to understand about love and trust? Hence the men's boots for today. Let's hear it.
It's a very sensitive topic in itself. It's a very sensitive topic because I would not feel safe coming to meet you if I do not know that you truly love me and that you care for me. I would like to also add, apart from love and trust, I want to put care. Care is that thing that holds the love and the trust together. Because if I truly care, I can be able to communicate. And one thing that makes it really thrive is the communication. Because in communing with you, I can tell you that I understand you, I feel your pain, I understand what it is. You can make mistakes, but don't forget to always let me know. You begin to miss it as a parent, whether a father or mother, where your child's first point of conversation when they mess up or do anything is going to be the outside. Their uncle, no, that outside. They could spend, of course, naturally, if you're in school, they spend greater number of hours by the day in school than home. But because you have built that relationship with them, you hear cases whereby a child goes and says, when he comes and say, Daddy, say I was in school and they already beat me. Let me say, for instance, my younger brother, while he was still much in primary school, something happened that he comes back home and he's crying, and my dad tells him what happened. Said, he was there that they used to beat him. My dad now used our dialect, local dialect, to tell him, if they beat you, beat the person back, as in defend yourself. And that same week my dad gave him that instruction, it happened to be that a particular young man beat him and he threw a corresponding action. And he broke the boy's nose. Only for us to find out that it was the ballet of the community. It was his son. So we just saw that we were home and the whole community, the whole crowd was just coming and saw them. And my younger brother was just walking like a balogun, walking in front. And everybody was wondering. So my dad was like, what happened? He said, Daddy, you told me that if they beat me, I should defend myself. And the boy tried me and I defended myself. Oh. And my dad was like, okay. So at that point, yes, I told him. It was based on the communication I had with him. So, okay, come this way. Okay, so what can we do to salvage this situation? It's because of the conversation. And that is where I think what's missing presently is that as fathers and everything, we need to have that conversation with them so that we can be proper role models. These guys are looking out for other means of getting role model, getting instruction, getting advice. I always tell you, and I'll tell anybody anywhere, until I know you truly care for me, I can't tell you my deepest secret and faults. Because if I tell you my faults, are they going to be reference point or are they going to be news points or news adverts or the next article? Did you hear? Have you heard that? Did you hear that? Did you know? Are you aware of that? No. Let me take for instance. Another example was that when I was growing up, there was this family friend of ours, and we just noticed that a particular time, the elder sister, though she was a twin, the girl, she stopped coming out when we used to play. We used to come out and play by 5. But she stopped coming out. And she was like hiding every time. She began to get fairer or lighter. And we didn't know, like, what's up? Like, come, like, every time we went to the house, she was ostracized. It was much later, we found out that she was pregnant. And because she was pregnant, the family, they dealt with her. Let me say, they dealt with her. To the point where, even at home, she lost her respect among the younger siblings. Because, of course, you've messed up. So she didn't have a say anymore. She didn't have a voice. She didn't have anything. And that's what happened until she gave her the child. But let me tell you, that child, Kosi became the love of everybody in the home. But something that happened to Kosi's mother. She made a mistake. But how did they handle the mistake? That's another thing. How did they handle it? Someone will tell you, you don't beat someone that's already down. You don't beat the person that's down. What do? You try to help the person get up and let them know that, okay, in this mistake you've done, you made a mistake. But see, towards the next time, but whichever way, we help ourselves to stand, because if we stand together, we can be better. That's what is missing in this present day sometimes of families.
Wow. See, I couldn't even interrupt you. I was just enjoying. I was just enjoying the
Yeah,
speech.
I like the point he made in the sense that he said something that, trust is being built and people don't really find it easy to express themselves to someone because so many times in the past, people have, one time or the other expressed something to someone and it didn't end well, or maybe they started hearing the news outside. Let me give an example of my first lesson of trust. I was in primary school. Then, although I was the one that started it, I spread a rumor about someone, that somebody was kissing somebody. That was in primary school. So I now told my friend. So the next day, I now noticed that he went to the primary because I was in primary 2. And I noticed that he went to the primary 6 class very early in the morning. So I was now wondering why did this person go to the primary 6 class? At that moment, I suspected that thing I told him, he went to go and tell the other people. And that was my first time, expressing, something like trust with someone because I thought it was my friend. And I was just making like a gist or a jest about something that I knew happened. So immediately that happened, I suspected that, okay, he went to go and tell those guys. And I was just looking like, okay, what will happen? So I think few hours later, that's how the girls, they now came to my class. They now came to drag my ear and pulled my ear and they beat me. That's me. Why am I spreading false rumor about them? And it wasn't funny. So from that moment, that was a lesson for me about trust, that even if you know someone, do not spread false rumors about people and don't trust easily. And a lot of people, they have that issue of, if I don't know you well, I don't want to relate issues to. But what I would say to that is that you need people. You can't be an island on your own. You can't keep putting everything inside and just saying, I'll deal with it, I'll deal with it, I'll deal with it. You still need to get to that stage where you need to trust. So for you, you might need to build maybe a system that works for you that, okay, I need to know the person to a particular extent before I can talk about these issues, or I need to do this and do that before I can do this. Because trust too is about communication. You need to spend time to communicate to the person, spend time together, know the person's sense of value. And that speaks to who we are. Is he a Christian? Is he born again? Do you think this is somebody that I can trust? So a lot goes into trust, and it works for different people in different ways. But the point is that you need to take active steps to choose who you trust and be careful when you eventually take that step. Yeah.
What a beautiful topic. I'm very excited to talk about this. I think we can talk about trust and
Love and trust.
yeah, we can't talk about love and trust without talking about truth. And love and trust is the bedrock of every relationship. Oh no man, nothing but love. But you see, trust, we're not commanded to give trust. It's something that you must earn. I choose my words carefully. Must. You can't, even your spouse, you can't, I don't think you can give it to your wife. It's not a gift. It's something that she has to earn. Because it's the antecedents, things happen that cause you to have trust on someone. You don't just wake up one morning and say, I trust this person. If you do that, you may be deceiving yourself. You may just be, speaking in faith.
But you see, we are God men. And being a God man means that we do things as God does it, like God does it, the way God will do it. There are people you're supposed to give trust to by default. It's not because they did something to earn it. Take, for instance, your spouse. You are supposed to trust your spouse by default.
I think let me just to add to what you said. Before I got married, this is one thing before I got married, I told my wife then we did. I said, see, let me tell you something, and let me make it clear to you now before we enter this conversation, before we start this journey. And we have no these questions of do you think, do you love, are you ready? Are you ready? I say, Auntie, are you ready to get married to me? I said, please don't answer me in a hurry. Don't be in a hurry. Love is a lot of sparkles and everything because the journey ahead is far. But this is one thing I want to tell you now. I want to make it clear to you now. I choose to trust you. In order to go to where we are supposed to go to,
Yes.
there has to be, one of the ingredients or the ingredient, basic one that we need to is trust. They were not just mere words. They were words that were regurgitations. If she messes up, I'm telling you the truth, even today, I choose to trust her. And through the times and the season, when the trials and That's why when the problems and anything comes at that point, we can be able to hold ourselves and battle it together and do and win together through that time.
Let me explain further, continuing from where I stopped, why it is important to trust. That's why we're talking about this, because we know that a lot of people have put, you have to earn it. You do something, then I'll give you, my trust is a trophy that you have to, your trust is not a trophy. Your trust is something you give. For you to live your best life, you need to trust. For you, when you hold back your trust, you are holding yourself prisoner. Let me tell you, if you do not trust, let us bring it to spouse, for instance. If you said until your spouse ends it before you trust your spouse, you cannot give your spouse the best. Neither can she give you the best. Why? If you tell your spouse, if you don't trust your spouse, for instance, and your spouse says, honey, have you brushed? Your mouth is smelling. Because of lack of trust, you are offended. You will interpret that statement as a statement of insult, and you're offended. But because you love and trust, and when you say that, honey, have you brushed today? Your mouth is smelling. Because you love her and you trust that she's not saying it to insult you, you're like, really? It's smelling? Let me go and brush. The same statement made, but because of the presence of love and trust, is interpreted differently. The absence of it will also make you interpret it differently. So as a man that wants to be a husband, or that's already a husband that wants to be a father, or is already a father, both to your spouse and to your children, you need to. The moment the love and trust is in it, the things you are supposed to teach them, the training they're supposed to get, you will be able to freely give them because that foundation is there. If it's not there, you can't give it.
I hear you. Wait, hold on. I hear what you're saying, but I kind of understand it too in a way, in the sense that, like you said, we have been trained to, people to learn to earn trust. Do you understand? And you are bringing a different narrative that, which I also agree that, trust is actually a choice. You choose to trust somebody. But the reason why maybe some people are a bit hesitant to easily give that trust is because of experiences that they have had. Do you understand? And it's now cladding their judgment about trust. And when you really listen to people and what they've experienced, like the example I gave, I had a bad experience about trust. If I wasn't intentional about my work with God and all that, it may have formed the wrong perception about how I deal with trust. So my question to you now is that, okay, so for people that, have this wrong narrative of how trust needs to be earned, do you understand? What are the things they can actively do, or new narratives that they should have to change that perception to, trust is a choice? Because we can just say that they should do this, and do that. But if you don't give them the active steps on how to do that, or let them see it in a distance perspective, there'll just be an argument. They'll just be like, no, this is not working. So, run us through that so that we can be clear on how we can get there.
We're going on a break right now, and right after the break, I would answer this question. See you on the other side. Welcome back. Now, before we went on break, I know you were feeling the tension in the studio here. Everyone wants to get the clarity. How dare you say, I give my trust first and get my trust bashed and dashed? Okay, but you see, this is what God goes through every day. As his children, he's trusted us. And a lot of us bash his trust here and there. But you see, he does not take that trust back. Why? Because he's loved us so much and has paid such a high price that his agenda for us is that we succeed. He's pushing every day that we succeed, that we become that which he has created us to be. That is the line that we're towing. That's because we are like him. Now, I'm going to answer the questions they're asking, but I also want to put it in their mind that, do you know that this thing you're talking about of the concern of not getting your trust being bashed is something that God goes through every single minute as a father, as a friend. So how does he cope with it? Well, let me hear his question, then I would answer.
I think, okay, just based on this question, I just want to just chip in. Let's look at the scenario. Look at the scenario. The prodigal son. The Bible talked about how the father had a conversation with them. And so the boy knew what was his right. But it was not even his set time. But he stood up and said, can I have my portion? The trust that the father had, the father did not grant him his request of being a servant, but rather reinstated him to it. Do you understand? So it's that, our Lord Jesus was telling us about the love that the father has. And that's talking about the prodigal son story. So People, of course, people go through experiential things, activities, things that they've experienced before, and that's why I don't trust anybody. I choose some person like I'm always on my guard. But don't forget, in life, one thing is, in order to move forward, you don't move forward by building walls. You go ahead by building bridges.
Yeah.
So the distrust is fence that will go so high that you can't even reach out, and also to be reached too as well. See, if I have a fence, there's some places you see they say keep off, beware of dogs. The fences are very high. I can't reach them. They can't also reach out. So, but you have to be able to look beyond what is the best. One other thing that let me know, talking about love and trust, 1 Corinthians 13, the TPT translation, talks about it. Talks about love, in different dimensions. Say love does not count any wrong done against it. But the love sees the best in others. So I'm coming to the point whereby you will be hot, sure. See, if you're not hot, it's not easy. When the Bible says you go to the fire, not be burnt up, it means it's the fire experience. There's a water experience. That means you'll be denied. If our Lord and Savior Jesus was denied by his trusted ally, and the Spirit, what happens? But it will happen. What again now? It's the outcome. You don't let it now keep you and let you now be boxed in a particular place. A good number of the people today, whether as parents, even as children, are boxed up. So care, communication, and love in itself will help a broken person heal quickly and faster.
There's a difference between forgiveness and trust. We're not talking about forgiveness here. That's not my point. You should forgive, even before the person asks for it. Holding somebody in your heart because the person hurt you or something is like taking Panadol for another person's headache. You're taking, pills that will destroy you, hoping that it will destroy the other person. No, you have to let go. That's when you can move on. And I want to establish the fact that when it comes to relationships, there's an amount of trust you give. The amount of trust you give to me as a colleague will not be the amount of trust you give to your wife. Those are different, because the amount of trust your wife has earned, I've not earned it. Now, for example, when going into a marriage relationship, there's an amount of trust you give to your wife or your spouse, the person you're going to get married to. You're going to trust her. If you don't trust her in the first place, among the more than 5 billion women in the world, why would you choose her? Now to build up from there, it's going to be based on the amount of transparency, the amount of truth that will build up. It's a platform you begin to build upon. But if that trust you gave at the initial level is destroyed, probably she betrayed that trust. It will be difficult for you to, trust her with more. Of course, you're not going to take it back. But it will be difficult for you to trust her more. For example, let me paint a scenario. Assuming the last time you wanted to have me on this show, and you called me to come, and I said I was going to come, and eventually I disappointed you. And the second time I disappointed you. The third time, you're calling me to be on the show. I believe wisdom will tell you to have a backup, because he might not come. Why would you do that? Why would you not give me unconditional trust? Now, I want us to establish that fact, that there's a great difference between trust and love. I think we are mixing up trust and love. Love is unconditional. You love everybody unconditionally. Your wife doesn't need to earn your love. Your husband doesn't need to earn your love. You have to give it. But trust is something, for example, let me narrow it down still again. I don't think there are some things God will tell you that he will not tell me. The reason God can confide in you some information, can tell you some things and say, don't share it. The reason why God can tell you things and he will tell you not to say it, because he trusts you to an extent that you will not say it. But if you go ahead before time to share those things that God has told you not to share, he's not going to keep trusting you with secrets. Because I have observed that in most marriages in today's world, there is no trust.
No, not in most. In some marriages.
In the body of Christ, I'm talking generally, worldwide. In the body of Christ, of course. But in the world over, I've had a conversation with a whole lot of people. They will tell you that they will not tell their husbands or their wives what they earn. Their finances, they don't reveal it to their spouse.
No, but before you answer, sorry to cut you. I want you to answer the question based on what he said. He said something very striking. He said build bridges. because yes, it's possible that the person may have been hurt. You've heard stories about you trusting and not being working out. And you also make another point saying that even in some marriages, you hear people say, don't tell your husband, what you earn, don't disclose all the information. What does that mean is that there is a gap in between the knowledge you have and the knowledge he has. So, but he said something about you need to build a bridge. So that's the way I kind of want you to like answer his question, so that he will know that, okay, yes, there is a gap in between. Yeah.
1 Corinthians 13, from 5, but the B part of 5, it says, talking about love that you're talking about now, it says, love does not, let me see. All right, so yeah, let me start. I say, love does not take into account a wrong done. Love does not rejoice over injustice. Now, I'll take both of them because one of it tends to talk about what you're talking about, and the other side seems to talk about what I'm talking about. Now, love does not rejoice over injustice. I'll start from that. So you're saying, oh, if somebody hurts me, should I now still put the person in a position where the person will hurt me again? My answer to that is no. I'm not asking you to do that. I'm not asking you to do that. If that's what you are here for, what I'm saying, that's not what I'm asking you. But you need to understand that love does not count hurt. When the disciple, later the apostle, said to the Lord, how many times should my brother offend me? 7 times. It takes trust for you to be offended. The reason why you're offended, it is because of what the person did, countering the amount of trust that you have for the person. You're taking the example that you gave. If I said, oh, you're supposed to be on set with me, first time you don't show up, second time you don't show up, third time you said that I should have a backup. The reason why I'm not offended the third time is that the trust is no longer there. So I will not feel offended. Yeah. But the first time I felt offended because I trusted your word. That is the reason why I got offended.
Now the third time I've lost that trust.
No, see, the third time you did the same thing you did the first time. How come I didn't feel offended the third time? Why? Because there was
the amount of trust that reduced.
Good. Which means that you cannot be offended unless you trust. Hence the reason why I'm going to not counting the odds against the person. Because you see, as long as you are counting the odds, it means you no longer trust. Does that make sense? Or should I say it again? The moment you enter into my friend's circle, it means I trust you. You are already in my friend's circle. It is not because of what you did. You are in my friend's circle. As your spouse and your child, the moment you dish out trust in measures, you would also get the benefit of it in measures. Yeah, true. Good. Now, you do not want to get it in measures.
But in
hence,
full.
You want to give it in full. Now, the reason why you do not give your child a car to drive, it is your child a car to drive, a 6-year-old a car to drive, it's not because you don't trust the child. It is because of the love for the child. You do not want to destroy the child. So talking about why don't you give certain responsibilities to certain people, what you have with the person is not a lack of trust. You do not want to overburden this new thing you have so it does not spoil. So you grow it. The mistake he made with his friend when he was in primary school is he just met this guy. They have not built a thing together. He gave that child more than that child can bear. And he made a mess of it. It is not so that he will not trust next time. The reason why God told you something and said, don't say it and did not tell me, it's not because God trusts me less. It's because he's giving you something based on the conversation people are having. He is doing that with you, and he's doing something else with me. It does not mean he trusts me less or he trusts you more. No. Do you get it? So even when you mess up, God does not tone down the trust. What he does is, he does not want this additional information to destroy you. So he starts working on you because he's not giving up on you. The moment you get to that point, the trust did not fizzle out. What you showed him that if he gives you this one will destroy you. The small one that he has given to you, you already made a mess of it. So he keeps the car and starts raising you with transport first. You're using public transport. When you get to the level where you can accommodate it, he now gives you the car. So that he does not give you the car and you ram into someone. You don't even know how to drive. So he waits until you can drive. So he's giving you...
Your child enough at a certain level.
No, it's not trust. It is the fact that you love him so much that you don't want to give the child what will destroy the child. The holding back, it is not out of trust level that you are holding back. It is out of the love and understanding you have of the person. That is why you are holding back this. The reason why you don't get to a stranger and you just start telling the stranger everything, you do not want the stranger to misuse the information. So you hold that back until the person shows, I can handle this. Then you give it to the person. It does not mean, if you need to get to a dealing. A lot of us meet someone for the first time and we go into $1 million, $2 million, $10 million worth of business. So it's not an issue of trust. It is capability. You do not want to give someone that cannot handle 1 million, 10 million. 3 sides of a conversation I was told by a man of God, and it has stayed with me. He said there is your side, there is the other person's side, and there is a God side. And he made me understand, and I've found out through many research that that third side, which is the God side, is always the best side. Do you understand? So you could say, oh, I've always been told that trust is earned. Yes, you've always been told that. Oh, and you have scientific things to prove the earning of trust and all that. Okay. But what does God say? What is God's stance about love and God and trust? That is something that has been tested thousands of years and proven to be true. God loves you before you became lovable. God trusts you before you became trustable. Now, what we're saying is, if you are as God, because as He is, so are we, right? So if we are as He is, you also need to do the same, especially with your children. And I'll explain why. If you don't do that with your children, once your children cannot sense that trust that you are talking about, that you are giving in measures, if they too are saying that you are giving the trust in measures, when they do something that they know that is beyond that trust that you have given, they would take it behind your back. Yeah. So you would lose a lot of things because the way you gave it in measure, they can see the measure, say what I just did now. If daddy hears it, I am in soup. So they are not bringing this thing to you. Next thing, people outside know more about your kid than you do. But the moment your children know that the amount of trust that you have for them is such that they even can't measure, no matter what they do, you are their refuge. Your spouse. You see the spouse that you're talking about that say, I cannot tell my husband what I earn, or I cannot tell my wife what I earn. Why? Because their spouses gave them trust in measures. Without trust, you can't have safe space. If you deal it out in measure, scripture cannot be broken. The same measure with which you have given, that same measure will be given. So if you give without measure, guess what happens? You also receive without measure. That is what all, as much as we can take in this episode. We wished we could get more time so we deal in it. And I hope you look into the scriptures. Everything we have said, look into the scriptures. Try to get God's mind about the scenario, and you will not go wrong. All right? So don't give out these things in measure. Give it out the way God deals it out with you so that you get God's kind of result. That will be all that we can take from today's episode. I hope we blessed you richly. And from me, I would say, to have a great day. And please put these things to work so that you get God's kind of results.